Oh, ready to start Piacenza. I've written down the 4 French goals, French-Spanish goals. I'm taking the simplest choice as far as I'm concerned. Anything else is really kind of rough. Like the northern option forces me to take Mucinasso. These others, or to do something kind of mixed, like try to gain a little bit of ground here and a little bit down here. This just looks like what I want to do, you know? Now, because it's the most obvious, it's also the thing that the Austrians are going to defend against the most. Yesterday was a weird and painful day in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I ended up not going to the celebration of life wake, whatever. Apparently there's been a number of them for this guy, and it's just like, anyway. The person I was supposed to go with, or was supposed to meet there or whatever and get a ride home with maybe, she didn't want to do it. And so we just hung out for a couple hours drinking. But I had to run and I had to go down to the store and get myself milk and chocolate and all that. And now I'm really low on vodka. Today would have been a good day to go shopping, but my addiction is in the way, in the sense that there are requirements on me from the clan that, like, I don't know if I can even meet. Let's put the turn record here. And I guess we just get started. Do we have the sequence of play there? We don't, but it's over here. And things just start with the wing selection. Now, I had gotten, I think, kind of confused. I thought these were banners. They're not. This is the banner. Okay? On the other side of a wing commander or whatever is the staff marker. So I thought this was the word for staff. No, it's the word for banner. And fane, yeah. Drapeau, that makes sense. Bandera almost sounds like banner. So, yeah. So these things come in, the little horse guys come in if you lose your leader and you need a staff. And so here I've got 2 French, 2 Spanish commands, and I will select one of them. Are they all the same on the back? Yes. Excellent. That's very key, because then I can pick one, move it forward. Like, I'm not going to worry about it because I'm playing solo, but if I was playing opposed, I wouldn't have to keep them all hidden under a piece of paper or something. As it is, we already have, we have to keep a piece of paper for the writing. Oops, grabbed the wrong guy here. And here we have the 4 Austrian wings. Are they all Austrian? That doesn't look very Austrian. That doesn't look very Austrian. I don't know if those are actually Austrians. I bet you it just has the Austrian flag there. Oh. I think it's just Austrians here, and the Piedmontese are avoiding the battle. Right, so what we do is I pick all formation that I want to move first out of all mine. And here for the French, I'm going to pick, I guess, the I'm looking for the things. This is the right wing. Green here. Where's his commander? They're hard to see. Green is probably the center, but I'm looking for the overall commander. Now I could look over here and find him, but this is going to be hard later on. That'll be Croix. Do I have him on the map? There he is. Yeah, so he's the center. Technically the center should be coming between the right and left wing, But I think what I want to do is I want to advance. All right, let's advance the right wing. Because I see these guys are right wing here. And I'll pull apart and then bring the center down where it belongs. That'll make me happier. For the Austrians, good Lord, I don't know what I want to do. You know, I really don't. I'm on the defensive, that's for certain. And given that, there's not a lot of desire to activate anything. I think I'm actually going to activate my reserve. Now, this is a problem. If I need my reserve, I don't really want them activated. But to some extent, I could actually fill in this gap here with units of it, which might serve some purpose. Shift it over a little bit to help defend in that side. I feel like it's a little too far north at this point. And now we roll a couple of dice. I'm going to use the blue for the Franco-Spanish. If I had like a blue and yellow die, I would use that. And then, I don't know, white for the Austrians feels more right. But anyway, we'll stick with the dice the game gave me for now. And we get a 0 for the Austrians, a 6 for the French. So the French get to choose first. I'm going to force the Austrians to go first. So they will commit this. This gets placed up here on the turn record track to indicate that's the currently going force. And then, what do I start doing? I do a wing activation. Remove the field de ball. And then I can start moving units according to their formation situation. And again, my goal is going to be to get to here. I'm not expecting to do any bombardment or combat. I'm not going to be within range. These aren't very big. At least this little reserve wing wasn't. So, you know, I moved a bunch of forces. Didn't really do anything. A couple of cannons moving forward. I'm going to put them on the line there. Again, I'm committing my reserve. This game looks like most war games in that I don't really think a reserve's that important. There's some where a reserve is absolutely vital. I find this kind of disturbing in many, many war games. Like, quite often, it's more important to get most units on the line. Simply because, and maybe we'll find the linear formation means that the linear rules to this game mean that you kind of have a hard time coping if a breach in your line happens and you don't have a reserve. But I'm going to have a partial reserve, right? So, yeah. And then also, I've got a fallback to here, which is actually maybe better, but we'll see. So that means now the French have to go, and they go with their right wing, and we'll move it to the right a little bit. Now, I don't know what it gives for mechanisms, but I think I'm going to flip these guys over after they're used. Just so that I know what the moving unit is. There are other options. You can put them aside, whatever. But I feel like piling them up on the turn record track actually helps me. And I can actually push them forward. I don't have to have them in the current turn. There's plenty of room for four wings. So that's first wing command there. That's all that happened, right? We're just maneuvering, shifting some forces over. Making room for the center to come forward. What's this pale blue stuff? Oh no, that's purple. Okay, what's purple stuff? Yeah, this is where I start getting confused. So I've got these guys with a purple marker for wing command. I don't understand. Oh, that's part of this. That's part of my left. Yeah, okay, I need to move them as well then. I don't have to adhere to lines or anything. This kind of is in one, but, well, I mean, it is in one, but otherwise, you know, I've got a line aiming this way. That's more of a column. I will deploy if I start getting close to the enemy, but right now, I don't have to worry about it. Anyway, that's where we're at. Now we pick another for each. I will pick the center with the hope of bringing it forward. I mean, not really hope, it's going to happen. And for the Austrians, I mean, there's not a lot for me to do. I can open up some space here. I'm going to move the left wing. I'm going to try to cover more territory, I think. Not a lot. See, the problem is I've got a little hole here. So, whatever. But I'm not expecting the enemy to come to my level, you know, to be engaging this early. And it's kind of neat. That's going to be an Austrian activation. Oh, no, that's going to be an Austrian choice. They will force the French to activate. It's kind of neat because it gives me time to fiddle around with the simple part of the system, which is actually really simple right now, without worrying about the stuff that, like, I'm going to have to struggle a little bit more with. What else? Yeah. Really not sure about this redoubt entrenchment question, because the only thing labeled redoubt is that, but I don't know what that is. Like, I don't have anything that looks like that on here. Period. Okay. I also don't know if it has any impact on play because it's across the river on the other side that, you know, once you get through the city, essentially. What the hell? What can that possibly mean? Okay. So for stuff that might affect play, I've got to go with the color differential as the only possible. All right, so then with the French being forced to move again, they forced to move last time? No. Yeah, we'll bring the center up, I guess. Kind of careful. What is this pale green? I think that's this stuff and not, it doesn't have many trees. And, you know, so I think the forests are pretty clear. I like look for, hey, where's some green terrain? What's that up with? And I immediately see this, but I don't think that's what it is. The redoubt, that's an actual building in there. Yeah, if there's not a building or a structure or a tree, I think I'm pretty safe in saying it's probably clear. The stream-like thing is the ditch. I'm just struggling with the map. I think I will get used to it, and it won't be a problem, unlike, say, Summerstorm, where the map was a serious problem. This is clean enough, even though it maintains a sort of period appearance. Here's what's getting me into trouble. Cover level 2 has movement point costs. Oh, wow, what the hell? I can't even read this. Movement cost 2 MP as opposed to 1 for regular stuff. So if you're moving into where there's a building or something, and I've ignored this so far, I've just slithered through, you got to pay an extra movement point, which is going to slow down any kind of deployments. But also there's this artillery 2, okay, plus TDR with a +1 DRM. I don't remember that being the case. That, like, is that only with linear formation that you have to worry about that? Or is that just all the time? Misalignment looks like it's outside of line infantry movement. So yeah, so you kind of want to avoid anything that's drawn on the map. No TDR though for moving into the woods, but it disorders the unit. Yeah, I mean, so what looks like pretty clear terrain to me, I'm just like, oh yeah, move, move, move. I'm not going to fix what I've done already, but man, that is, terrain's kind of harsh. All over the place. It doesn't include these little things, which are farmsteads or whatever. They are indeed clear because, I mean, there's just so much fucking terrain everywhere. There really is. For example, there's ditches through here. Those are only 1 movement point, but they require a TDR check to see if you can get into them. I'm beginning to have trouble with coping with just moving my pieces around. I don't know how much I'm going to get used to that. So this guy needs to move. He's got to go into a ditch. He has no choice, which means he makes a TDR. He's infantry. That's a 7. And now I look through all this. I'm not in line, so I don't have to worry about that. I think I'm just looking for a 7, but I'm going to have to make rolls. You know, when I get here, it's fine. So here, I try to move into here. This is now one of the things I've always kind of disliked about a lot of war games is that there's no die roll for movement. And here there is, but there's a lot of them, it looks like. So I make a 9. That means I failed my TDR. And I think I just don't move. If it fails, it stops and may present a hole. Okay, so this guy can't move. This guy, well, he'll try too. What was it, a 7? That's 1, 2, 3. We'll get him up there. We're going to have a hard time getting the units into play. This guy, he has to roll. Now he's Cav. Cav has an 8. It has an asterisk. Dragoons, okay. I checked. They're not Dragoons. So 1. I'm going to check again. I'm going to go here, I guess. Down to here. 3. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? How many times do you have to roll to move? 4. And 5. I'll make it to there. Okay, now this guy 1, but then he starts his movement rolls. 2, 3, a 0's fine. 4, 5. This feels really, really silly. But there aren't a lot of units on the board. It's a pretty light game other than having to roll for every movement. So this formation has moved. I've got no way to mark which formations have moved or whatever, and I didn't think that was going to be an issue, but with all these die rolls and everything in there, it kind of is becoming one. This is part of that formation as well. And I don't, you know, I'll be moving along the cover, but I think that's just one movement point without a roll, because these are entrenchments with like pathways and whatnot. Contrary to the chart, which just says TDR, and I don't think so. Misalignment actually says if it enters a covered ditch or stream before entering the hex or passing into the hex side. No, if it enters in an EZ, which means I'm within 3 of the enemy, that means I'm using the cover. So actually, I think this guy would have been able to move. And I can ignore things like this building here, which would mean I could be positioned like this. And I didn't have to make all those stupid die rolls. I would if I was approaching the enemy. I'm a lot happier with that. I shouldn't, like, it's one thing, you know, what I'm saying with, hey, why is there no die rolls for movement? That's got more to do with command type rolls. Are the troops actually ready to move and everything? Not, there's a building there. Should we stop and see if they have any chickens? You know, hey, you're in a battle. Don't do that. Okay, so I was doing things correctly before, and I don't have to worry so much about the terrain until I get close to people. A lot happier. I run into another problem because I'm sitting here and there's a stream here, okay? And I look at stream, hex side, consider blue hex terrain if in doubt, movement +1 movement point. TDR with +2 DRM. Artillery only through bridge. Combat allowed. DRM -1. Cavalry charge. No cavalry charge. Okay. It's really painful trying to read everything all clustered together in a little clump like that. Again, the chart could have been much better designed. But what's my problem? Well, oh no, this has stream too. Okay. I thought stream was not in here. I thought it was covered. I thought it was essentially cover and ditch. But no, stream is also there. So again, I can cross the stream by just paying the movement points. I don't have to make the die roll. And I think that's going to be the case across the line. I don't have to make that die roll to move across something. I thought the stream might be different because it's a more intense thing to deal with than just, oh, there's some cover. I want to take cover behind that cover as I'm approaching the enemy. That's going to increase, and I would get an advantage if they fire on me and whatever. That's going to increase my movement point cost. The stream doesn't feel like it's all that different whether there's an enemy present or not. So I was just thinking, I don't know. It may have something to do, like it's harder to cross the stream because you don't want to form up in a column to try to find the best crossing spot and all that when you're under enemy fire, and you might have a difficult time making it across under enemy, sporadic fire or distance fire or whatever you're talking about. Remember, there are battalion guns in all these units. And that'll be the French center has moved forward. That means now I get to go to an Austrian unit, and I had chosen the left wing. I don't think they're going to move much. I actually think I'm going to shift them like a hex. 1 hex or 2. Maybe a couple hexes, because I have a couple of extra units here that I'm going to shove in the front line. So, yeah. And just get my linear situation. Just to project a little bit down further, eventually I'm probably falling back. And the effort at, trying to decipher this, and it's clear enough, it's just, my misinterpretation and everything and the effort involved in it, that's kind of fatigued me, so I'm going to just do one more action. And then I'm halfway through the turn, so we'll take a break after that. Yeah, slight swing down using the streamline or whatever. Not really sure how Cav is going to do here. They're going to get chased off by the infantry. I may want to be deploying more of the dragoons as infantry. I've got them stacked still. I'll hold off on making that decision, but I'm beginning to really question having deployed them as cav. I thought I might be striking forward with the Austrians. I don't feel like that's the case. Now that I've started fiddling with pieces and everything, I think I want to defend. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about dismounting at this point, simply because it's going to take him a little bit of effort to get within my EZ. It is Wednesday early afternoon. I'm having a hard time motivating. Compare this to the Vice d'Agra game where it was just sucking me in and I was coming up to play. I don't think there's anything, I haven't run into anything that's wrong with this or anything. It doesn't have that same sort of hook into your soul the way those quick turnover games do. And all those, meaningful decisions that are in the coin series and whatnot that I rail about, well, yeah, but they drag you up. They drag you up because, and keep you playing for a little while. Yeah. Here I'm kind of dreading because I know that I'm going to stumble a bit, and that's problematic as well. But also raid is fucking with me. Just in terms of I don't know. I'm not meeting clan goals, and I'm trying to make up for it with just playtime because I kind of screwed a couple of things up. Anyway, let us, I guess, make my picks. It's not really that important. So I've got two here. I've got the left wing and the left reserve. The left reserve is that shit over there. So I guess I want to move the left wing next. On his side, what I'd like to do is shift the center over a little bit to cover some of this ground that I opened up. This is the time to do it. We make our roll, and the French get first pick, so they're going to force them to go first. Actually, instead of trying to shift over, hey, I've got the reserve going in over there. I shifted these guys down to make room for the reserve. I actually shifted up a little bit because I'm not as dense as I'd like to be up there along those defense, along the whatever bastions. I don't know what they are. They're not ditches. There's some kind of cover. I think those are redoubts. I start moving the left wing. This guy, this is why I don't like these different looks. Whoever this guy is, he looked like a horse to me. I don't know why. He's just doing something weird in his movement or whatever, and he doesn't look like infantry. And then I look at him and his movement and whatnot, he's infantry. So now my units are kind of moving up at a bad pace because I can't tell what's what because of these stupid little cartoony figures that look so different from each other. Each one has its own little, and some of them maybe by uniform and whatever, but they have their own poses and everything. It's just, it's an artistic choice that interferes with gameplay. You know, I don't mind little cartoony figures. I've gotten kind of used to them on the GMT side, for example. I don't mind if they're wearing particular uniform looks. Just don't put them in 8 different poses, you know, or whatever. Yeah, so like this guy with his, what looks like lots of different legs, it's actually only 2. If I zoom in, yeah, that's a human, but from, you know, back here, I'm not really able to distinguish him very well. He doesn't look that different from these horses that are running and stuff, you know? Yes, my eyes are bad, I could be wearing better glasses, but give us a break, you know? Finally hit a formation where we're actually in enemy territory. Now, I can trace a line between these, so this is linear formation, which is important because these 2 units have to be in a line. But these guys behind it, you can't refuse flanks, you can't do anything like that and be in your linear state. You might be able to refuse by a hex or something, but you're going to have a hard time. Let's say I wanted to go from here to here. You can see I skipped this hex. So I have to stagger that line to be straighter if I want to do that. And we're going to have a lot of trouble forming up and getting into that line. That puts us on our last pick. I don't know how big a deal that's going to be. I don't know how big a deal any of these are. The French get the roll. They're going to force the Austrians to go first. And we're going to try to fill in the protections up here. This actually looks kind of lightly defended. And one of the things that I'm not sure about is how well is Cav going to do at defending these breastworks and whatnot? My initial assumption is, wow, that kind of sucks. But I've got a lot of Cav up here in the front. I want to convert them. Some of them are dragoons. But for the breastworks themselves, what's that going to mean? And I'm not sure. You know, this is one of the problems with a system. There is a certain kind of obscuring of the system here, just like there was in Vijayanagara. and this is just I'm not really familiar with what's going on here. So what do I have to worry about with this? Well, I have to worry about what happens if infantry marches up on cav. The cav just retreats, right? That's my understanding, which means it can't really hold the ground. And unfortunately, I don't have the infantry that I need to hold this against an attack up here. And you're just kind of set up that way, man. Which may mean that maybe I should have picked these guys. Here's another factor. This artillery here isn't particularly safe out on its own. Now, what's my bombardment range? It's 3 hexes. So I'm just out of range of being able to do shit to him. But we'll be able to fairly soon. But I actually think this right wing is not really suited for the role that it's sitting in, which may mean I have to pull my reserve out of that center and do all kind of stuff faster than I thought. One of the things is that I think that, you know, the initial setup, as it's kind of described, should give me something reasonable, but that right wing is very heavy on cav. And not dragoons, actual cav, which, gosh, I don't know, man. I don't know how I'm going to defend this. Now we have a lot of stuff that basically doesn't do anything this turn. Recovery of units and such. These guys got kind of close too, and I don't know if they're in line. I wasn't paying much attention back when I moved to these guys. I don't know. We'll catch up with what we can. But basically, all that actually applies right now is I fit these back over and set up for another turn. And although I didn't do much, I'm kind of stressed by the errors that I saw, the fact that I'm, you know, within 3 hexes and therefore should be in a linear setup. I actually am. Legitimately, I can declare this is my line. That covers the 2 units that are within range, but that meant that I should have been able to plink with a gun during his activation. That activation came not long ago. Why don't I try a shot? Get something in there. So range is going to give me -3. There's no cover there. There's no smoke. Okay. So I see a -3 there, but I got to look for this as well. So I would be firing, I think that's a 5 strength artillery. I'll be here. This is fire, not bombardment. Column modifier against staggered depth. 2 or more strength points. That is the case here. So I would have a column shift to the left. That'll put me on the shit table. I didn't have a bonus. Checked those. So I've got basically no chance of hitting anything, of doing much, right? Well, no, it looks pretty good. I got a 5. I would have gotten a DR2, which the unit was disordered and retreated 2 hexes. That's not disordered. That's a disorder. And this would have retreated 2 hexes. And then during the cleanup phase and reorganization, both players try to restore. That's 11.4. I don't think it's automatic. It has to make a TDR. It's not out of command. So then the French would make a training die roll. That would be regular infantry, nothing, actually Spanish. Spanish infantry I need a 6 or less. Let's look through any of these. So I failed. I get to keep that disorder marker on me between the turns. And that, I think, was the only unit that was within firing range. That was this thing that fired, so this would have been flipped over. I could have fired a second shot and plinked at this, but that would risk damaging my guns. It would create smoke. Did I just create smoke? I actually think I did. Really use an index in this instead of the stupid examples of play and everything. And the historical context I found relatively dry. So the historical context covered a lot of the broad stuff, which is useful and interesting, but what it really didn't cover was too much about this campaign itself. It gave you a lot of context about the war, you know, the causes of the war and everything. It's kind of a problematic situation because this is a period that not many people know about, or know a hell of a lot about, right? There are some people who do, but most war gamers don't focus on, you know, mid-18th century stuff, and those who do probably focus more to the 7 Years' War. But then we do get some of the campaign stuff starting, I don't know, maybe somewhere around here. It's hard to tell. So you've got a few paragraphs, but I don't feel like there's a hell of a lot. It's more like a broad context as opposed to what led to this actual combat. There's a little bit, but anyway, I do find such things useful, but I kind of don't like it when they're too dry feeling, and this felt, I don't know. But I'm looking for the damn smoke. Okay, we got this. Almost as good. I've just gotten used to first volley, second volley, bombard. I know there's rules on smoke. Well, let's... Presence of smoke. Why did I not see that? Fire modifiers. It looks bold and important, but it's actually an underling here. They're all the same kind of thing. So after the first artillery barrage, a smoke would have appeared in that hex, and that would have reduced my fire capability, right? But all smoke markers get removed at the end of the turn, so that's not going to actually be there because I was just doing some cleanup. All right, I'm done for now. This is all I could handle. I don't know what it is with me, but struggling with a new system is hard, right? And I've grown more and more dissuaded from doing hard things, especially when all I have to do is go downstairs and start hitting myself up with more electronic heroin. The French, rather than try to exploit something that I didn't even notice when I picked them, I just grabbed their right wing. They're looking at that outflank, okay? That's where their concentration is. But the Austrians are like, whoa, I got a hole here. Uh-oh. These guys moved and I didn't unfire them. They're like, we have to fill this this gap here that the reserve is not yet up to place. It would be possible to push the French left wing or the Spanish left wing into play and try to break through here. And actually, given the choices that I've got, that would be almost optimal. But it would only be a little bit of my force making that quick break across the river. It's not into the breastworks or anything, perhaps. So I don't know. Anyhow, the French didn't see it. They made their decision too quickly. We have an Austrian choice first. They're actually going to fire their own off because they want to make sure they get up there before the French get a chance to push. And I just keep calling them French. I should just call them the Bourbons. Then most of that gap, this was not something I had to roll to get into. And neither was this. I'm just positioning myself on the riverbank or stream bank or whatever. Now we go to the right wing. Move some of the right wing forward, but some of them I have to be careful with. So like this is within the enemy zone. And so I got to make a die roll if I want to move into that hex. I do think I want to because I want to keep swinging that way. So this guy would go 1, 2. This is safe, but then this fort, to enter that, I have to make a quality check. And I do make it. And that'll let me bring the rest of that unit forward. Now for the French, I want to move my center up. There's no question of that. That's this unit here. Because that'll help me delineate where sort of the two left wings are going to be. But this is a relatively large force, and I would like to get these guys out of the way, but there's plenty of room for these guys to move. What is up for the Austrians, though? I don't have anything I terribly want to move. I'm very afraid here. Since I'm just holding a river line, I'm actually thinking about withdrawing because there's that threat here, but there's plenty of room to withdraw later. So I'm going to actually put my left wing up with the intention of not really doing anything with it. It looks like the thing I least, like, I do want to move it eventually. It may be the thing I most want to move, but I want to make the Franco-Spanish army pay a little bit more to gain that ground before I fall back. At least that's my hope. And we do a quick roll. So far, without any combat or anything, the system's flowing pretty easily, isn't it? I'm going to make the French go first. As I start moving this center wing forward, I run into this unit, the Garde Lorrains, which has a 4 strength. I don't think there's any L on here. I don't see anything. Like, I look at some of these shoes and stuff. Given the way the L is written, it's kind of annoying. But let's take a look, because it's got a 4 movement. And what's up with that? So, central, this is the Imperials. Okay. That's why I can't find. This is the center. It's going to be this kind of color, I guess. Alright. Who's the fuck's it under? It's under... Not under this. This is like the wing commander, isn't it? Or, no, this is the overall commander. He can't even be here. He moved up with some of these others. This is the center under the Croix, but who's this commander? Senator, something like that. That's this. Garde Lorraine. It is not light. It just has more movement points. I mean, they're guards or whatever, but yeah, I am trying to find something that would distinguish it. I'm like, well, maybe they're light because they move fast. What was the secret light unit that I had? This thing, which did have a 4 movement allowance. So whenever I see a 4 movement allowance, I'm gonna make sure. This had ended up being one. I think I would have had to draw an L on the counter because it's just, you know, these are hard enough to see. Unwise by moving the right wing where I did. It might have been better off moving up as the center because I see I've got a nice calf detachment in my center, which would have been much, much more helpful in that outflank. I didn't really pay attention to what the composition of the units were. I kind of assumed that the wings would have some calf detachments on them. There doesn't appear to be one on the right wing. Oh well. Austrian left with no artillery in place. They're just going to do a pass here. That puts me to the next choices. Well, I think I'll just keep working my way across. I'm not sure it's exactly what I want to do because it might help me to formulate what's up here, but I don't know. And I may be hitting the enemy here, which I don't really want to do. But we'll see what we do there. And from his side, I actually think he wants to do the right first. But again, basically the Austrian choices are, look, I'm in defensible terrain. I don't want to go anywhere. I do have some firepower, but the firepower is kind of weird. So like this unit way up here with the right wing, that's actually part of the center up there. It's artillery from the center. Just like the only artillery I have is center and reserve, and I'm moving the reserve slowly forward. One thing that does is it may allow me to force all the Spaniards to move within gun range before I have to, take my turn and fire off my artillery. I would not get a shot if as they approach if I end up choosing them too early. As it is, they're accommodating me very nicely by doing that first. Let's see what the activation order is. The French get first choice. They are going to force the Austrians to go. And I don't think the Austrians want to do a damn thing. I can't figure this out, right? Do I have somebody under here to protect it? I think this is as good a defense as I can manage. Unfortunately, I have cav behind breastworks, which just doesn't make much sense. A lot of the setup for this is kind of like, what the hell are you guys doing, man? You got your cav in the center instead of on the flank. You've got, and I don't feel like this is entirely me. This looks like it's what it's supposed to be when you if they call one wing the center, you kind of expect that it won't be on the flank, right? Next time, if there is a next time, which is unlikely, I will probably rearrange to some degree. I can't do everything though, because like these setups, these guys are stuck back over there. They're forced to be there by this. And it's like, you're not in good places. Okay, we got, I think, an example of a problem. So I am looking at Caravel's unit, these Parma, they got a little L there. I did not even see it. I looked and I said, that's a 4 movement. It does have an L if you look carefully enough. Man, I mean, it looks more like a C to me, even when I look at it, but Jesus, the representation is shitty. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the counter design in this one. Again, like the map, an aim towards being pretty rather than functional, but I feel like the map does an okay job functionally. I don't feel like the counters are doing that. clunkiness of the training die rolls, maybe just because it's hard to remember, but you know, I move into a place like this. I mean, this looks almost like a road. It's a ditch, some kind of waterway that is not that important. Doesn't cost me movement points, but I'm within 3. I had to make a roll for it, but I didn't realize I had to make a roll. And I've got to look, like, if I'm entering anything that's at all interesting, I got to train myself to you got to make a roll to do that as you start getting close to the enemy. I think I've done it so far, you know, this turn. We got our disordered guy going here. We're careful to maintain lines, so this is a line coming through here. I could connect it to that. I'm not sure. Actually, I couldn't add this to it because this guy is too far forward. It doesn't look like it goes through his hex at all. It looks like it cuts through this instead. So, but I don't need him to be in line. He's not within 3 of the enemy. It's these guys who are. Similarly here, I've got a line defined here. These guys in the back, they're okay. But I don't know if the zone of influence, or if the enemy zone or whatever. Let's see, let's find a definition for it. Do they have zones of control? Engagement zone. That's page 7, not rule 7. Somewhere it refers by rules, but it's not interrupted by terrain features or game units. Yeah, so these units can't keep moving up behind. They're going to have to stay outside of that 3 hex range if they're not in a position where they're trying to form a singular line. You can't have a secondary line here, although that was common. I think that's represented in the hex of the units, the way the game describes things. And, you know, scale and everything is why the density in a hex doesn't really hurt you. It actually helps you. All kind of stuff like that. Did I move everyone? I didn't move Gadges. He's just flying him up. He's not really doing anything right now. He's just trying to keep things under command. So that's that. That gives me one more command. No choices here. The Austrians get first chance. They're going to force the French to go first, or the Spaniards as it is. And, oh shit, this is part of that. Ah, fuck. Let me move these guys too. Hold on. Finding this a wing is determined by this little corner thing to be not terribly helpful. I'm going to get into that same kind of problem, right? So if I want to move these guys forward, obviously I can't just charge them all forward. I got a line that I'm forming here. It's going to be broken, but that's okay. 1, 2, 3 to here. This guy I think moved. I think this guy has not yet. But I'm with it. I think these guys have. I don't fucking know. I'm getting confused. But I'm within 3, which would mean if I had wanted to move a hex further up, which I could have otherwise, yeah, I think I could have. Wow, these guys are really fast lights. I see the L on them. I think I could move to here. I don't know if any of this is wise. I'm really struggling. But anyway, yeah, we're on these guys moving, and I don't know what the hell to do with them. They're supposed to be the left reserve or something like that, right? Yeah. I don't really know what they're up to. It's time for the Austrian center. I feel like I need to cover this a little better than I'm doing. Yes, I got my reserve here, but it didn't get into position well enough. So I'm going to shift things over this way a little bit, just because I think this is kind of a lost cause. I don't think that's defensible. Some of the best defensible terrain, supposedly, with what is it, cover level 2 redoubts, supposedly, but for whatever it matters, where I think these are not readouts. Are they? What's the difference? The only difference I can tell between these is kind of color, and this looks a little bluer than those do. So I think those are just entrenchments, which is fine. Like, I wouldn't expect... See, the thing is, this almost looks like an extension of the walls. That's my problem with it, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually entrenchments. Anyway, this should be some of the most defensible stuff I have on the board, certainly compared to this, which is where the cav kind of makes more sense, is behind this river line. But this is as well, and I don't know. There's only 3 victory point locations up here. There's 4 down here, and then there's this central one here. So it's like, yeah, I could lose those, I guess. Losing 3 still loses me the game, though. I don't know. I may not be able to move freely here, so I've got to roll a die for this, right? So that's going to be, well, I don't know. Are they grenadiers? No. That's going to be an Austrian 7 to even cover that hex. No, I don't get to cover that hex, and that means I'm kind of stuck with the positioning I have, which then will take me to, let's fire some guns, and I guess I'll show you one. I don't know. I don't remember. How do leaders get hurt? Leaders, I think, only get hurt by somebody going into their space. I don't think I can shoot them. Page 7, 4.7, somewhere in there. Got commanders retreat. We got capture commanders. Do we have anywhere where they get hurt? I thought... I don't think so. It's captured if the last piece in a hex. Yeah. I don't think they can just get shot. Which feels a little odd. Okay. Well, we'll fire out to here anyway, just because. So, what are we looking at here? We're looking at, I got 5 guns, which puts me on the big table. Depth. Yeah, there's depth. That shifts me down to the little table. Wing formation commander fire bonus. I don't think so. Okay. Range is 2, so I'm at -2. There's no cover or anything. There's no smoke yet. Okay. So I'm at -2 on that little table. And I get a 2, which is no effect. That is going to place a smoke, because it's the end of the turn. I'm not going to worry about it. But it would be there. I'm not going to fire a second time, etc. I'll do the rest of these little plinks, come back, and we'll finish the turn. So we got a step loss there. I got to check that, because it would seem like this order is a lesser effect than step loss. A DR1 is a retreat. Do I have to make... I don't see anything there, but do I have to make a disorder check? Or, I mean, I don't even know, I guess against the tactical rating. Effects of fire combat. You know, 1 unit loses a step. I don't think this causes any, I don't think it causes any morale impact, which is weird because everything around it causes a morale impact. So an RR as a unit routes. Yeah, the only thing that causes both is this 1R, which does a step loss and a route. Anyway, We've got this unit weakened, and now it's a smaller unit, so it's more likely to take damage from fire and everything. Feels weird, but okay. Let's take a look at what we do cleanup-wise. Reorg. Okay, the French have a chance, or the Spaniards have a chance to reorganize this unit, which they succeed in doing. Not much is happening yet, but I'm still struggling with the system a little bit. Just the clunkiness of something. I remove the smokes. These guys flip over. I gotta be careful. I'm so used to, I take a counter and I flip it like this. That's gonna change the facing. We don't wanna do that. It's side to side flips in this game. Not a big deal, but you know, you get used to it with each game, but it's like I'm so used to just flipping right now. And then we go to the, I guess, 9 a.m. turn. Put these back here. Now these would be upside down. I am going to go back and fuck around on Raid some more. Not so much because I'm fatigued, but because we're at a good breaking point. But I'm not going to load this up yet, even though we've gone through a couple of turns, seen some of the mechanisms of play. I want to at least get some combat in play. I think this is going to probably end up just, I don't know. We'll see how bloody the combat is. I think I'm going to go into detail on it a little bit in the first couple of combats, but then like most tactical games, I'm just going to come back and show you what the results are as things happen. We're actually really kind of slowly taking our time on this video. I've gotten so much wordier and everything else in recent vids. Well, over the past, like, say 4 or 5 years, it's gotten really, really much worse for whatever reason. So here we're back. It's, I don't know, it's got to be getting close to midnight. And I'm hoping to get some action in this turn and then be able to load things up. The personal side of things, the dark of night there, it had some nice kind of weather. The last few days, it's getting kind of chilly. I had to close windows and stuff like that. Not all of them up here, I don't worry about. But tomorrow it's supposed to hit 96, and I'm like, oh shit. I really should have gone out and gotten my vodka today. Or cut wood or something. Oh well. So, I think we're going to start with the same kind of process where the French are going to fire off their right wing, try to get it sliding this way a little bit more. Maybe actually land some blows. For the Austrians, well, we still have a gap here. The French are being monomaniacal here. I'm going to put the reserve back again with that same intention. And we get a French action. The French are going to, I think either side would have done this. The French are going to force the Austrians to go first. I could put this up here. It doesn't make much difference, I guess. I don't know. I've gotten used to just cluttering them up there. I could actually spread them out, something. Who knows? All right. Successfully made the die roll to move from this hex to this hex. We're going to see what that does. You're not forced to attack. I don't know quite what the restrictions are, though. And now I'm going to try to move into, oh no, this is fine. I can move into here without any penalty because there's no cover there. Tightening that up. I still got those guys to move. This is problematic because this is a line as long as I don't move a unit in there. But I can't move a unit in there anyway because it wouldn't be part of a line. And also, I'm not really sure this is a line. I got to check my colors, which may have some impact. See, these look similar enough. So I've got Mercy here, who's this kind of pink. I think this is part of this. because these guys are white on kind of pink. It's just very hard to differentiate. They made the colors so close in some cases, which for those of us without great color differentiation, and mine's okay, it is more problematic. Yeah, I cheated a little bit. This poor sucker, I'm going to fall him back a little bit because he can command this entire line, and he would be out of command right now the way I've moved. Everything else is fine. The army commander is in range and everything. This is something that I might also have trouble with the French. I'd have to figure out who their army commander is. Is it this guy here? Well, if it's that guy here, if he's the overall commander, he actually poses a real problem in terms of reaching here. As you can see, so similarly, I'm going to drop these guys over here, and I got to worry about where's my commander. This is right wing commander. He'll be in range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but it's getting close. I'm just checking to make sure I only have one overall commander. That's the problem. It's like I haven't really been paying attention to them. As long as I could have kept things in command, I don't think it's a problem. Anyway, or I fix them and I say the hell with it. So I moved forward a little bit, but again, I can't take up a position there. So now, what happens because I moved here? All right, well, I'll figure that out. Because I don't know whether or not I want to attack. I forgot, there's fire and melee in this game. I guess I'll shoot at these guys, see what happens from it. Let's test out the combat system. So remember, fire combat is reciprocal, and if I do 2 volleys, I might cause an issue. So I probably don't want to do that. So let's take our shot here. So I have a 4 strength firing a 2 strength. Okay. And these can both be done at the same time, although we'll be going across the board otherwise. You know, there'll be lots of fires across the board. I don't really have a marker to indicate who's shooting at who. Whereas charge and melee have markers, but you do kind of have to declare them all before you fire. This is the only combat that's open, though, right now. So we've got different tables here that we'll be firing on. So these guys are only strength 2, whereas these are 4. 2 is the extended, 4 is the intense. And then we look, see if there's any terrain. It's kind of hard to tell. Well, I am in a cover level 2, but I'm in, what is it? I guess that's a redoubt. Okay. This is charge stuff. Firefight, yep. Column modifier, no. Wait. Bombardment or fire, staggered in depth. Okay, staggered in depth would work. So in both cases, we're going to have a shift against us. So we're looking at extended versus normal now. Wing commander, fire bonus. In both cases, we have a winger formation commander. We have a formation commander bonus. I think it counts if you're adjacent at full strength. Yeah. Which means the French are at a -2, the Austrians are at -1. And we can kind of keep track of that, I guess, with die roll numbers. Normally, I wouldn't be doing this much effort, right? But I'm working my way through. Die roll modifier. Cover. I'm sorry, that's not a minus. That's a +2 and a +1. Yeah. I was looking at the wrong numbers. Those are the sergeant numbers I was looking at, but they're the same values for each guy, so that's fine. Okay. What were we at? Cover, level 2, is a -3 here. That means he's at like a -1 for the French firing back. There's no smoke yet. This is not reaction fire. Reaction fire is when somebody's running away from you. Aligned fire. Yeah, interesting question. The line formation. A firing unit fires at full strength if it's adjacent to at least one unit of its formation that's also adjacent to the enemy. The Austrians are not aligned, which means that they will suffer a -2. So now both sides are at -1. And flank fire is not in place. It would be if there was a space separating these two units hitting that. Okay. So both are at -1. That's a 2, no effect, and a 0 is no effect. Now, I could declare to fire a second volley. Doing so would require a tactical check, and my infantry's better than the Spaniards, so I might want to do this, but the sergeant numbers are the same, break it down so it's the same. So I don't have any real advantage to doing it. I think I'm not going to. I'm going to fire just at this distance. So that, I think, is the entirety of that center activation. Now we go to the right wing. Now, I took a lot of time for that. It's not going to take that much time, but there is going to be a little bit of puzzling. First of all, working your way through these modifiers until they become really, really ingrained. But also remembering what the hell's going on in the course. Now, normally you wouldn't roll both dice at once. Normally, I think you'd roll one side across the way, and I don't know, mark some like intermediate state markers or something like that to indicate what's going on. It's gonna be painful whenever you have simultaneous fire. It is weird, right? There are games that try to work their way around this, like Wellington's Victory, where you're like, yeah, I'll fire this unit. Okay, I'll fire this one, and you work your way down the line or whatever, and you get something that way. But it's not really simultaneous. But anytime you're trying to represent simultaneous fire across multiple units, things are going to be a little weird. Anyhow, let's move the French. Now, when am I allowed to move my army commander? Because I think that French commander needs to move. And that is a good big question. Okay, nice. I don't see any information of when you're allowed to move. Obviously, the formation commanders, the wing commanders, they move with the wing. I'm looking under the movement rules. I don't see it there either. the CIC at the end of the activation of any wing. Okay. Once per turn. All right. So, yeah. I'm going to have to try to keep these guys in command and keep this wing that's doing an outflank in command. And honestly, the battlefield is stretched to its limits. And remember, this butthead is not allowed to be just anywhere. He's got to be in a named location. So I'm supposed to move him at the end of wing movement. For convenience sake, I'm jumping him up to here. That allows him to keep everything in command up there and extend as far as I can here. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right here above Valera or so. Somewhere in that range, which is where the wing commander is going to have to be. It's a cumbersome thing to keep track of. I'm not used to having to keep units within a range of the overall army commander. I'm used to wings and whatnot being able to operate somewhat more independently, and yeah, so it feels a little weird to me. And as this line approaches, I have to make rolls to enter into the various cover hexes. Not this one, but this and this, which has caused some difficulty on my side. Start to move up, and I realize, wait a minute, I got Cav here. That Cav has to run away, but now I have to find the rules for when the Cav runs away. I don't think it's combat, but maybe I'm wrong. See, it says infantry cannot conduct melee against Cav, but okay, we got a rule on Cav. We got Cav combat. But where's our movement? We have no Cav movement here, right? So, Section 9 is combat. Section 10 is Cav. It covers Cav movement and combat. But there's somewhere where it tells me that infantry, okay, I have the infantry cannot melee Cav, but that refers back to something. I'm expecting to see something in the movement rules. Cav refusal. The moment an infantry moves into the zone of control of an enemy Cav, the latter must retreat 1 hex without reaction fire. Yeah, okay. So this had to retreat first, then this does. When this guy comes up, and yeah, we're gonna see the Cav just getting chased away. At really no screening value or anything, it does not slow down the French at all. To make things even more complicated, I had to define a line for this unit as to where it's going to end up. That's a really, really complicated and painful thing to express. You know, I can say vaguely this, you know, maybe to here, but, and then I have Cav units, which I don't think have to be in line. Yeah, Cav don't have to be in line. So it's kind of weird because also this command has Cav associated with it. And of course, it's not on the flank, it's more to the center, just like I've got a fair amount of Cav in that center force. That and it's the way things are set up to begin with, which you don't have a lot of control over. This unit here, Larnage, is way out in front of all these other units of its same wing. So obviously it's the unit that you're going to flank with, right? Yeah, maybe not. This guy was back here. I'm moving him 1, 2. He's trying to get here, but he can't make that extra move. And then these Cav, I'll just shuffle them down here, I guess. I don't know. And now this is a different unit, which I get to define a different line for, and that will try to engage. But I've got these guys who are also part of my formation. I was kind of sliding them around to further outflank, which might make more sense. Consider that this Anjou formation is really weird. I've got like this really tiny unit, Claircy, this unit which isn't very big, and then this unit of Grenadiers that's potent. I really don't know what the hell to do with it all, but I guess we'll just define this as the line we're trying to get to. 1, 2, 3. 3 up there. That's going to chase these away. Oh no, there's infantry coming! Calf can't hold shit. Very interesting. And now I've got this formation, which I do want to keep going in this direction. 1, 2, 3. Now this commander, I said he could go down to about there. I'll put him down here. Clearly has everything under command. And now we get to fire. Here there's no defensive terrain at all. And I can combine these two against this, this against this. I probably want my leader here so he can provide a firing bonus for both units. All right, so that's what I'm going to declare. I'm going to declare these two fire on here, this fires on there, and then at the same time we're going to get counterfire. This guy can only counterfire at this, I guess. These guys get to choose one of those two to counterfire at. Well, I'll choose the bigger unit, I guess, even though I've got an advantage towards shooting the smaller unit because it doesn't have that comparison. Let's do this one because this is going to give us a view of how the fighting is going to happen when you have more than one unit engaged. Now, this could be all along a wing, right? It's not, but it could have been. Okay, so is this horse? I think that's a horse. Yeah, so these guys are all horses. Why are they defending the line? Why do they exist? I mean, really, the horses here seem so underpowered. Yeah. All right, so we'll do the attacker hits first and try to figure out a way to represent them. So this one's a 3 firing in, and that means I'll be firing at extended to begin with. But it's modified by 1 because this is 2 or more strength. So I go down to a normal fire. I don't think there's anything else in play. And then we look down through here. There's no cover, none of this shit. Okay, so we've got a normal roll on there, and we'll fire that. That got me a 9. That's going to get me a rout. Okay. Well, I can put a route marker behind that or something to try to remind me that that's what it's going to do. But now, oh, I had a -1 for this. Sorry, not a -1, a +2. So I actually got an 11. Oh, well. A 9 is good enough. So now this guy was going to fire as well. He only has 1 fire strength point, which starts him on the normal. Since it's all simultaneous and everything, I go down to mild, but I will be at +2 on the die roll from the leadership. And I get a 10. That's a DR3. That's going to be a disorder and retreat 3 hexes. Well, how do I record that? I don't know. I really don't know. Like, there are no markers to indicate length of retreat. But the combat, which is supposed to be simultaneous, and this is why I wanted to view this out, is not really, they're not really giving me anything for that intermediate state, right? Now, I could come back and shoot right away. That might be the best thing. When I look at the combat rules, that's not really the way it's worded. The way they talk about it is the active formation after moving can fire. After each volley, enemy units subjected to fire in turn, but it's treated simultaneous. It's just this painful situation. Like, I feel like I'm going to need counters all over the fucking place if I have like a long line, like, engaged, and that's not going to work very well. So I think I'm going to shoot right back with the Austrians, and I was going to shoot at this unit. So that is a, got to remember which number's which. The 3 is the fire value at a -2. So I've got 3. That's going to be extended. I'm firing at a strong unit, so it goes down 1. And I have a +2 to the die roll, which means I get an 8. I do a hit on this unit. And then this thing routes back and also is disordered and retreats 3. Right? Was that what it was? Yeah, I got a 3 there. So I guess I'm back there. I don't know if there's a collaborative effect to disorder and retreat. And also, no, it's worst morale state, worse hits, worse additive hits, worse morale state, worse retreat state. Okay. So now we've got an attack here. Now, ideally, I would have known what happens here before I actually retreat, because maybe I'd rather be here or something. So now this one, we're both firing, and those are not 4s. It feels to me like the 4 should be the firepower value, but no, it's the 3s in both cases. I've got a grenadier. That means something. I know it's a value here, but I don't think it affects anything here. We didn't have flank fire, although I might have been able, no. I was wondering if I could do it by firing these 2 at one unit, but they couldn't both hit the same unit. Okay, so we're looking at a 3, which is going to be extended. Back 1 because he's big. Big being not a size 1 unit. He's got, a 2nd rank or whatever. And then at +2 to the die roll. Whoa. This guy's still here, so I got to remember that. Okay, +2 to the die roll on the normal. He gets a 9 nat. That's going to be another routed marker. That's not going to be anything else on that. And he shoots back, and he can only shoot at this. So that's a 4. No, 3. Shifted down to normal at a +2 for the firepower advantage. And he rolls a 0, which gets him nada. And now this routes, I think route only sends you back 1 hex, right? No, I think route sends you back 3 hexes as well. Okay. So, we had 3 units engaged 2, and it was that complicated to deal with, right? And it all has to do with this stupid idea of, trying to do simultaneous fire without any kind of markers that relate to it, right? Now, I don't see this as a workable game in a lot of ways. I think it's small enough that you can play it out, but imagine this kind of system on some of the other battles of the era, some of the battles in Germany, whatever. I really don't. I mean, this is a tiny battle. I don't know if it would be at all possible. I think this simultaneous fire concept is just not reasonable. All right, I'll swap batteries and we'll hit the next activity. The thing with simultaneous fire is it is absolutely the intuitive right answer. I mean, it's exactly what's happening. The forces aren't taking turns firing at each other like they do in most games, and that's appropriate. Now, it's one of the reasons why fire combat games introduce usually a layer of seeming error, right? Now, you can make an argument defensive fire makes sense because the attacker's advancing while they're moving forward. The defender can fire first. It doesn't really work that way, though, especially in like this era where the firepower really comes into play at at a certain range, and you basically fire and start reloading at that firing range, which really means both sides will be exchanging fire at the same time. Now, there's not going to be a second round of fire because we routed them. But yeah, I mean, you look at something like Summer Storm, which uses a CRT system with lots of crap built into it and everything, and in a way that makes more sense in both than what you'd see in like I don't know, games like Terrible Swift Sword or whatever that handle fire combat explicitly, right? As opposed to just baking it into a system. This is trying to handle it explicitly, and it's trying to handle it in the intuitive fashion that these forces are stopping at a range and exchanging fire at that range. And yeah, the Austrians broke. Okay. It's also interesting that your morale quality does not affect how disordered, how routed, whatever you become. It's only the firepower capability. Is that reasonable? Is it not? I don't know. The basic idea behind that is that a unit just cannot stand a certain amount of fire. But this is fire that did no damage to these units. Okay? All it did was scared them off. It did not cause, I don't know, no damage is an extreme way to put it. It didn't flip them. It didn't do enough damage to make them lose a step. So it doesn't feel like it's the kind of damage that, it's the kind of firepower that would have routed, say, whatever these are. Well, these are lights. I don't know. But, if this was Grenadiers, those effects would have been exactly the same. There's no concept of any kind of morale check or anything. Now, the only things that give you a morale bonus are light infantry. Those are lights. And I think Grenadiers. I thought Grenadiers give you a bonus. All right. I swear Grenadiers give you a bonus on something. Otherwise, why do they exist? And nobody had unaligned fire. Everybody was adjacent to somebody who was firing of their formation. Yeah, I thought there was an effect to Grenadiers here. Which leaves me to wonder, where is the effect of Grenadiers? Maybe it's only... No, I was thinking maybe it's only recovery, but it's not. Jesus. I know I saw a rule that said Grenadiers do something different. they help with the fire? Yeah, I don't remember where grenadiers come into play. And this is where indices are more useful. But maybe, yeah, see here, and grenadiers, but it doesn't tell me what they do. And it doesn't give me a rules reference for it. But I remember there being something where the grenadiers gave an advantage, and I thought it was on the training drill. Maybe it's on melee? Not seeing it there either. It's not going to be there. Ha! Well, I'm going to have to spend some time looking through the rules, maybe line by line, for the word grenadier, because I know it fucking does something. All right, whoop, 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 we found something that we got to do. A commander in a hex with combat units forced to retreat has to make a roll. On a 3 through 9, no, I'm sorry, on a 0, 1, or 2, the commander is killed. Okay, he's fine. I'll keep looking for them grenadiers somewhere. Thing we got to remember: when units get disordered, for bombardment or fire, we had one that got disordered through bombardment. Nothing through fire except this routed guy who didn't get any worse. You know, doesn't get worse from it. There's the possibility of ignoring the result by putting the changing marker in a line. I forgot about that. Still working my way through. Well, I was on the right place briefly. That changing of the ranks thing, that is the one place where grenadiers are mentioned. They give a bonus to roll a die if the result modifier is a number between 0 and 3 to this special check for changing of the ranks, which is not on here, and of course therefore easier to forget, but it's a crowded chart. There's no, the player aid is rather crowded as it stands. They're already, you know, not leaving much margin here, so that there's room for the title or whatever. Couldn't shrink that down a little bit, give a little bit of margin. But yeah, now, so that is the only effect of grenadiers, is that they allow you to force the changing of the ranks a little better. Where am I? You know, I've done one action. I'm fatigued. I am in no condition now to face the next set of pair of activations, after having basically looked through the whole rules twice for the word grenadiers. And you know, I got caught away from this and didn't see that grenadiers was very clearly there, because that was something I had forgotten about. But this game feels awfully clunky right now. Right, here we go. I should plug this guy in. Here we go again. French are gonna move the center wing. I gotta be careful. This is my commander-in-chief. They really don't stand out very nicely. And then I'm gonna fall back with the left wing, I guess. French get first call. They're going to force the Austrians to go. I'll just do it this way. I think that's better. To try to figure out my movement, it's not a pleasant thing, because I've got a ditch behind me. It has a normal movement point cost, but I might not be able to get past it if I fail my TDR. I also have these routed units. I think they may trigger right now. No, I don't think so. I think it just hangs around and causes issues. Here's the situation. We fell back a little bit. I'm worried about routed units getting messed up somehow. And then the center line moved forward, starting to run up against some of the Spanish left here. Not much I can do about that. And they will go next, and I think we'll trigger the right wing to give us the most opportunity for fire with those artillery units. Austrians get first pick. They're going to force the French to go first. Now, if I want to attack against this kind of protrusion here, I've got an issue. Big issue. I've got to create a line, and that's not trivial. I think it kind of comes down this way as sort of the best I can do with my positioning. That covered this formation. Now I've got this formation. Now again, I guess I'll be trying to cut through these hexes. We'll see how it all works. It just feels so cumbersome and unrealistic in a lot of ways. The second line, this unit, kind of luckily was unable to get into this hex. I had to try to get into it, but I failed my die roll. You see, we're coming up against the enemy. We'll see what happens when I start firing. I don't have the kind of movement points to actually melee. You need to have the movement points to move into the enemy hex. But whatever. I can define some sort of really weird line. I've moved these units forward, but I haven't defined my line yet. I can define a line along here, which kind of, I think, allows me to do the things I want to do. I'm not sure. This is going to have to roll to get in there. But yeah, if I define my line here, these guys couldn't make it. That's their problem, man. So this, I guess, is more or less, well, it is the formation that is attacking. I'm going to do some fire combat, but it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Like in a place like this, it doesn't make sense for me to attack all these units. I should just attack that unit with everything I've got, which will give me flanking bonuses and everything on all the fire, and just try to demolish that thing, is my view. Elsewhere, again, I should concentrate my fire. So, for example, these two will both fire at this. There's no requirement to, like, shoot at everything on the line, and that way he can only fire back with the unit that was shot at. I'm not going to go into all the details of all the fires. I'm just going to do them and see what happens. For simplicity's sake, I'm taking each firing section and handling that on its own. So here I made a decision not to fire because I'm outnumbered. Here I had a couple of units firing. Both the artillery and infantry fired back, and they're going to rout both of these units. And yeah, it's no fun attacking enemy infantry in those in what are they? Redoubts. Yeah, it really isn't. And the artillery especially gets a big bonus for firing grape shot. It only gets one shot back. It doesn't get the double round of fire, but neither do I, because both my units are routed. Now, for the actual routing, you're allowed to route through units, and it doesn't cause any disruption. Again, that doesn't feel accurate for the time. Look at other games. These linear formations really were not in a position. Now, it doesn't really matter. This is just a leader that I put back there. Got a very lucky roll shooting into this hex, which is going to cause a DR3. At this point, I make the roll for the changing of ranks. That's between a 0 and 3, and I check to see if there's grenadiers anywhere nearby. Leaders don't help with this, just grenadiers. So yeah, if I get a 0 through 3, I put a changing mark on top of him, and he can ignore that whole effect. I do not. So he's going to be getting a disorder and a retreat 3, but he gets his fire back. I think this is our net effect of our Spanish attack. The guys attacking here got flung back here. Both sides bounced off and ran away. Somebody ran away here, concentrated fire against him. Here we got him with a changing marker, and there was a casualty underneath there. You don't have to check for leader loss on casualties, but you do on disorders, retreats, and whatnot. The wiki. Whatever. And that means it's time for the Austrian right to move. Now, that's going to cause, I'm going to be launching a fire here. I don't really think I want to move my cav. I'm not sure, but like, you know, I could come charging out and try to do something. I don't think that makes sense, but I don't know. I don't know what the impact would be if I do it, is the problem. So I'm going to avoid it. The only thing I did was fired at this, and we disordered him and forced him back. He didn't have the opportunity to change because he didn't have the 2 strength point capability, so he falls back automatically. And yeah, 2 more activations, and once again, I'm fatigued. I still have the center, which has some artillery, etc., to fire. I've already shot this one, so I'm not allowed to do that again. On the Austrian side, I've got this reserve here, which is mainly cavalry, although I do have some infantry, which can probably take that location if I can slide them in. I just don't feel like I have the energy to do another 2 activations. It is just relatively more intense than I expect from a tactical game. Down to the final activation set or pair. The Austrians get first call. We know what we're facing. We don't really care about it that much. We'll let them go first. So we've got a line defined here. There's a unit that hasn't been able to make it, and we're making a cav attack here. We're going to do melees for the first time. This is a cav versus cav melee. Declare against an adjacent enemy unit only if it is in a clear ditch. See, I don't know if I'm clear. I can do a melee here. I don't think this is clear because the, what do they keep calling it? Redoubt. I want to call it a bastion. But right. Yeah. Entrenchments is the other. Okay, so we talk about cav melee, cav unit activated in melee, adjacent enemy unit. Artillery attacked by cav are wiped out. We don't have that. If the defending unit is infantry, blah, 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 nothing happens. Otherwise, the defending infantry unit, this isn't infantry. I don't think I have to charge. I think I'm allowed to melee that unit. I'm not actually allowed to charge because both the terrain of the hex occupied by the enemy cav unit and the adjacent one have to be clear. But I don't think there's anything that prevents me from doing a regular cav melee. It's not absolutely clear because over here, melee against cavalry, infantry, or artillery, or charge against... Yeah, I can melee regular cav. Okay. So, what is allowed to fight? Yeah, that's a good question. So, it sort of goes against this. So, you can declare a melee. An infantry unit can declare a melee. Yeah, but they're stacked cav, damn it. This is the whole problem. A lot of this doesn't apply, even though they say it kind of does. Oh, and if these are fucking dragoons, they can't work properly, but they're not. I guess I can use both units. So I have a strength of 10 against a strength of 5. So that gives me a 2-to-1. And I think that's all I got. It's just a 2-to-1. There's no modifiers to the dice. This is only bombardment and fire. Oh, we get a D1, which is defender takes a step loss, disorients, and all the stack. One unit loses a step, is disordered, and all the stack retreats a hex. So this will fall back. This will go there, I guess. We get a disorder. Now, do we advance? The winning attacking unit must... Yeah, and like I said, I think there's 2 units here. Must advance. So we push into there. And I think I did that right. I had to roll, obviously, to get into here. I don't think I can attack across this at all. Why couldn't I? Was there some reason? A cav unit may declare a melee against an adjacent only if it's clear or ditch. Yeah. So, cav can kind of defend behind the entrenchments and stuff against cav, but not against infantry. I think that's all for the French, which means we go to the Austrian center, and the main thing this is going to try to do is try to get some fire combat into play. The first thing I've got to do is define my lines. I think these are the only units here. So this is the beginning of this unit. I can define a line across there and move into there if I make a die roll. 6. I've got sergeants with me. It costs... So, a unit which spends 1 movement point or more to enter the hex is going to cause a +1 or +2. I think the fact that I have to spend 2 movement points shifts the... And again, a unit line spends 1 movement point or more to enter the hex, +1, +2, CTEC. If we go here, plus TD... Oh, okay, so I think I only get a +1 on this. That brings me to a 7, which means I am allowed to move here. And I could move the leader here. That way it affects both of these. I'll move this up a couple of hexes. Technically, he's supposed to get to here, but I don't have to keep moving him. And now with this frontage, I can shift Piccolomini here if he makes his die roll. And that again should probably be a +1. It's not going to make it. So we're not going to have adjacent fire, so I don't want to shoot here. And I think I just want to shoot the artillery here. I probably want to pick on the unit that's changing, because it won't be able to avoid a disruption result if that's the case. The infantry is close enough, I believe it gets return fire to artillery bombardment, but I'm not positive about that. Maybe not, maybe not. Actually, don't think I do. I do not think I do. And I might want to fire multiple times as opposed to before, because now I've got enemies that are close to me. I don't want to shoot this changing guy because he's Austrian. So I'll shoot this. Feels like this is the end result. I drove some of those French off, and not much else. Now we go back to here, and we take a look. Reorg. So the routed units, well, first we do the disordered units, see if we can get them back to good order, and then we worry about the routed units to see if we can get them to disordered. I'll just do those rolls off camera. An interesting situation I had to look up. This guy here, sitting next to Piccolomini, who I think is his commander. I can't really tell these colors, but I'm trying to keep them in the same locations. He's got a base morale of 7. The only penalty he's sitting in here, unless he's adjacent to smoke, is, well, he's got no penalties. But he's got a base of 7. -2 means a 9 will succeed, and I rolled a 9. I went to look up because I thought there was something where a 9 always fails at something. It ain't this, whatever it is. It's hard to remember all these things. So he succeeded in getting his back. I'm still working my way through. I think I got all the disorders rolled, which means now I go to the routeds. For the routeds, we're just trying to get them to disordered. Now you'll see, not everybody recovered. We got this guy's in a zone of control, so he had a penalty. But you can still try to recover. But here, routed unit. So he's an infantry. He's a light infantry, so he's bonused by 1. He's got a leader who's another -2. He can't possibly fail. This one, however, doesn't have quite as much. He could fail, but only on a 9. And I'll catch those, then I'll do some other cleanup work. I'm so afraid of double fires, I haven't done them. Here I might have done it if he had stayed in the same position. Especially with the infantry, it feels really weird to do that more intensive firing. But here we are, moving into the 10 a.m. turn, I guess. And this is how the battlefield looks. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm not getting a great deal of narrative out of this because I'm fumbling around with the details of the movement, die rolls here, there, and everywhere for it. The details in the combat in a way that I'm trying to think. So Banish all their fears, I felt like I was able to get a pretty good view of what was going on. This feels like it's getting me tied up in the situation so that it's actually, at least for now, giving me less narrative than I was getting out of Summer Storm, which is an incredibly mechanically taxing system for me. However, I gave that a lot more playtime. and I don't know if the first couple turns felt as pain. The first couple turns of actual engagement felt as painful as I'm feeling that this is. One thing about this is, there's not big sweeps of troops happening in general, and I wouldn't expect that from linear combat. But I also remember being very, very dissatisfied with the Battles from the Age of Reason series, much as I went out and picked up so many of them, which is the same time period as this. Now that felt like it was heavily influenced by something like the Labatt series, which I also did not find, very good at finding the narrative. Like, it didn't hit that sweet spot in terms of amount of detail that I like versus amount of mechanical complexity being thrown in to try to get to that detail. I know with that I was so worried about the movement point cost for each hex, but I feel like this has the same kind of shit going on. Sure, Banish All Their Fears, I had a lot of grumps about the way the wing divisions were arranged and everything in that, which I felt didn't allow you the flexibility that you needed to command your troops appropriately or to react to situations as they occurred. With this, I don't feel anything of that nature, and I feel like my wings are pretty flexible. In fact, maybe way too flexible. Although the situation is such that I got things like this that are positioned directly behind this wing. Well, wait. This is part of this wing. Yeah, okay. I got this, which is positioned directly behind that wing, which wouldn't work in Banish All Their Fears at all. I feel like that game is a little too strict about the wing positioning, though, and I think this is actually getting it right to a large extent. That you have to keep your wing together, you have to keep the formations together, but the effort in doing so is more painful. Maybe because there's a little bit more movement, the turns may be taking, may represent a larger period of time or whatever. I don't know. I also feel very uncomfortable about the way combat actually resolves. The fact that, horses just run away from infantry there. I don't know. Some of it's believable stuff. I feel like the setup for this kind of forced me into a situation that I don't have the units where they belong, like Cav that's trying to defend behind those redoubts. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh well. I may be missing something important here, but it really feels like the Franco-Spanish are going to be able to just push this Cav out of the way and get towards their goals. And that means the defensive line, well, it might fall back to here. But again, the Cav can just be pushed out of its way. And I don't see much that's going to stop the French from being able to take these two locations just by sweeping that wing forward. I see a lot of difficulty trying to assault here, where there's actual infantry standing against me. We'll see if I get more comfortable with the system. So far, I'm finding it very cumbersome and very painful. It may all really just come down to that there's no easy way to represent the combat of this era that's appropriate, right? I just feel like there's something closer to, there's some way of representing the linear advances, etc., that comes closer to what I'm used to, saying something like Viva la Emperor, that could handle things without so much effort on being able, on moving a single piece, a couple hexes or whatever. I think there's something good about the defining a line and whatnot. Some of that feels right. What feels kind of painful is this having to roll to enter every hex. Shit like that feels a little too painful. Now, there was nothing like that when I look at the Battles from the Age of Reason that I recall. That felt a lot more like the Napoleonic shit coming out of the Labatt system, where my gripe had more to do with the amount of effort it took cross-referencing and figuring out the movement points to enter each hex, because it was way too much trying to act like a minis game being represented on a hex board. And to me, that's like, there's a big negative to that, right? Like, the point of a hex grid is to get away from having to deal with some of the shit that minis had to deal with. And I feel like both Labatt and Battles from the Age of Reason rely heavily on that. And I don't recall much in Battles from the Age of Reason that really added to that sort of Labatt flavor, right? There was nothing that really fit linear combat from my view regarding it. And then the other system I have from this era kind of is the Prussia's Glory over here, which, I mean, yeah, I have stuff from the earlier period too, but which is, basically one of those CRT-based, kind of odds CRT-based games across the board, sort of more reminiscent of Napoleon at Waterloo and the Zucker battles and whatnot. And that also, that kind of style always feels fairly flavorless to me. I think I had fun with it in its own way. I've sort of grown to like those kind of games more than I used to, but it still doesn't give me, that kind of tactical battlefield flavor that I really want for this kind of gunpowder battles. But yeah, I really don't know where to go with it. I just feel like there's something kind of that sits in between, not necessarily giving up any realism, just maybe focusing less on the things that I find less important. And to a large extent, I think Banish All Their Fears came close to that. I just did not like the way, I felt that the wing division concept was a little too restrictive. But maybe if those were completely flexible, we would get something that would allow something a lot better. But again, I don't know, linear combat has evolved in the 50 year, well, not 50 years, but 40 years approximately between those two periods. So I'm not really sure that that would represent this era well. I kind of feel like this is doing an okay job in some ways.